Well, week one of the NFL season is in the books, meaning we are now fully into the day-to-day and week-to-week grind of studying these games and trying to make some money off of them. With that in mind, let's look ahead at a few of the games this week. Some of the games that are going to be the more talked about games of the week, and some other games that might not be talked about as much, but that I'm keeping a close eye on. I want to start with the Thursday night game that everyone's going to be watching, the New York Jets going on the road to play the New England Patriots. I don't know which was more shocking last week, that the Jets pulled out a win or the Patriots almost lost to Buffalo. Actually, yes, I do know which one was more shocking. The New England Patriots almost losing to the Buffalo Bills, who they beat 18 out of the previous 19 times and were starting a rookie quarterback. That would have been a real stunner if that would have happened. Tom Brady, of course, pulled out the game in the end. Still, New England's offense is the walking wounded at this point. You probably heard, news broke today, Danny Amendola will not play in this game on Thursday. Rob Gronkowski expected to miss the game again. So between Amendola, Gronkowski, Aaron Dobson, Shane Vereen, who rushed for 100 yards on Sunday, has a wrist injury. He'll miss the next few weeks. Brady is really short on options right now on offense. New England a whopping 13-point favorite over the Jets on BETDAQ. Now, I understand the reasoning. I thought the Jets were going to be as bad as everyone else heading into the season, and even though they beat the Bucs by a point in week one, my opinion has not necessarily changed. Except, week one should serve as a reminder that the Jets still play good defense. Even when it all fell apart last year, they ranked top 10 in the NFL in defense, 8th in total defense, 2nd in passing defense. This is a quality defense. Rex Ryan knows what he's doing on that side of the ball, and they know New England well. They know this offense well, and they've probably never seen it as limited as they'll see it on Thursday night. So even though I don't think the Jets will be able to do much offensively themselves against New England or anybody else this season, they certainly didn't look like they had much potential on that side of the ball against Tampa Bay last Sunday. I'm not sure I'd be eager to lay 13 points in a primetime game backing a New England team dealing with as many injury problems as the Patriots are. Now, I'm going to move on to some of Sunday games now. One that caught my eye, maybe because these are projected to be the two worst teams in the NFL heading into the season, but the Oakland Raiders hosting the Jacksonville Jaguars, a whopping 6-point favorite. I can tell you with all honesty, heading into this season, I did not think the Raiders would be 6-point favorites in any game they played. But the Raiders showed up last week. They played well on the road in Indianapolis, almost upset the Colts. Andrew Luck had to lead the Colts from behind in the fourth quarter. Terrell Pryor played better than I thought he would play. I know he had some difficulties throwing the ball, a couple of interceptions, but he ran for 112 yards. He did throw for a couple of hundred yards. I believe he totaled almost 330 total yards. So, he gives them something. And that's why he's in there. That's why Dennis Allen put him in there. We talked about on the preview we did for that game last week. Remember, the last situation that Dennis Allen has been around that was successful was the 2011 Denver Broncos. Dennis Allen was a defensive coordinator for that team. He saw firsthand them put in a quarterback, a young quarterback who's known more for his mobility than he is his passing. They won 7 out of their first 8 games, playing a certain style, running the ball a lot. Denver led the league in rushing that year, playing solid defense, won a playoff game, won their division, won a playoff game. Dennis Allen has seen that style work, and he sees what he has in Matt Flynn, undrafted rookie Matt McGloin, and he thinks that maybe his best chance might be with Terrell Pryor. And after seeing him against Indianapolis last week, you can't argue with him. That being said, 6 points is a lot for this team to be given anybody, even the lowly Jaguars. The Jacksonville Jaguars played possibly the worst game in their franchise's history last week, and that includes the expansion season, losing 28-2 to the Kansas City Chiefs, a team that was also 2-14 last year. Okay, as an aside for a second, this may be a good examination of 2 different ways to do it, and which way you think will be correct. And neither one of us know, because we won't know for a few years. These things take a few years to play out. The Kansas City Chiefs and the Jacksonville Jaguars both finished 2-14 last season. They both started from scratch, fired their coach and general manager. Kansas City decided to go out and hire an experienced coach, a guy who's done it before and had success in the NFL. And they went out and signed a veteran quarterback who, while he's never been considered elite or even top tier, is a serviceable quarterback. Alex Smith, I think we could say, is solidly average. The Jaguars, meanwhile, in the same position as the Chiefs, went out and got a first-time GM, a 38-year-old guy who had spent 1 season as Atlanta's director of player personnel, hired a head coach who had never been a head coach at any level. Just 6 years ago, was an assistant coach for a college football team in North Dakota. Now, I'm not saying, obviously, Gus Bradley has some serious coaching ability. He's a definition of a fast riser, but the Jaguars went that route. The Chiefs went the other route. The Jaguars did not sign a veteran quarterback, even though they had a quarterback situation just as bad as the Chiefs. The Jags, for the last couple of seasons, have had the worst quarterback situation in the NFL, and sure didn't appear to be any different this past Sunday as the offense managed 0 points. Forget about the offense managing 0 points. For those of you who didn't see the game, don't know about the game, let me fill you in on what went on. The Jacksonville Jaguars did not cross the 36-yard line until the middle of the fourth quarter. Their own 36-yard line. The Jacksonville Jaguars did not cross their own 36-yard line on offense. They did not get within 13 yards of the 50-yard line until midway through the fourth quarter. Okay, that pretty much says it all. Just epic futility. However, the Jags as 6-point road dogs in Oakland with Chad Henne starting this week. Gabbert hurt himself last week, 15 stitches in his hand. Gabbert not playing this week. I'm one of those that thinks Chad Henne is slightly better than Gabbert, even though Henne is clearly limited as well, probably best served as a career backup. But I do think Chad Henne played better than Blaine Gabbert last year when he came, seemed to give the offense a spark. I still have faith in Oakland being terrible. So this feels like a lot of points to me in this situation. I mean, nobody is going to want to be betting on the Jags after that disgusting performance last week. So you never know. Fading the public in this situation, taking the points, could end up being a good call, as we said, very early in the week here. But still, we have first thoughts on all these games, don't we? Another one that caught my eye here upon initially seeing it, the Carolina Panthers, 3-point road favorites on the road in Buffalo. Now, this is another case when we talk about Buffalo of a team that I think sort of earned a lot of equity with their performance last week, and I guess I might not be fully bought in yet. I know they played the Patriots tough, as we talked about a few minutes ago, almost upset them. They did not upset them in the end. E.J. Manuel played fairly well. They didn't ask Manuel to do a whole lot. Very conservative game plan. I don't know. I still do not trust Buffalo. They're a team that's been bad on defense for the last couple of seasons. I know they played better for most of the game on Sunday. Starting a rookie, obviously E.J. Manuel at the quarterback position, Carolina is really good on defense. And I don't think people realize that, because Carolina the year before last was very bad on defense, and even throughout the first month and a half of last season, struggled on the defensive side of the ball. But you look what Ron Rivera did to that defense over the course of last season, and you look at the way they played at the end of the year. I believe Carolina has a top 10 type defense, and I do not believe Buffalo will be scoring very many in this game. So I look at Carolina as a short road favorite and think there could be some opportunity there. Now, I don't traditionally trust Cam Newton. Cam Newton is not a trustworthy guy from a bettor's perspective because he turns the ball over a lot. Obviously, he's had a couple of incidents in his career where he sort of quit, sort of started pouting on the sidelines, cost his team that way. He's been called out for it too, but I do think Newton has the ability to be as good as any quarterback in the NFL, and he's not a guy that I actively try to bet against. He just I hesitate before backing the Panthers with Cam Newton as their quarterback, but I look at the Panthers, as I said, as short road favorites at Buffalo this week, and I think there might be some opportunity there. Another game that I have an early shine towards is the Denver Broncos, -4.5 on the road, playing the New York Giants. Listen, I saw the same thing you saw last week, Denver 49-27 over the team that won the Super Bowl last year, even though I know Baltimore was very different with the changes on their roster. I saw what Peyton Manning did to that Baltimore defense, the 7 touchdowns. I realize we're talking about a Giants defense that was terrible in the secondary last year and just gave up gobs of yards and points to the Dallas Cowboys in Week 1. However, don't sleep on the Giants here as 4.5-point home dogs. The Giants have a good offense themselves. And Denver, lost in all the hoopla about Manning's performance last week and their big win, Denver could feel the loss of their 2 best defensive players last week, Von Miller and Champ Bailey. They're shorthanded on defense. Going on the road here against the Giants offense that can put up some points, Denver's going to have to match them point for point. Not sure the Giants at home as a 4.5-point dog won't be a good play in that situation. I want to talk about 2 games now that not necessarily caught my eye from a bettor's perspective, but just games that I'm really looking forward to watching. obviously San Francisco, Seattle. I'm not going out on any limb saying that this has turned into maybe the best rivalry in the NFL. There is genuine dislike between these two teams. They might be the two best teams in the NFC. Seattle, a 3-point home favorite on BETDAQ. We remember what the Seahawks did to this San Francisco team the last time they played in Seattle towards the end of last season. Just a dismantling. With that game still somewhat fresh in my mind, it's hard to picture San Francisco going into Seattle, where the Seahawks are the best home team in the NFL. The Seahawks and the Saints are the two best home teams in the NFL. Hard to picture San Francisco going in there and beating this Seahawks team. That being said, I bet against San Francisco last week, and even though I almost and I should have won that bet, it was sort of bad luck to lose that bet after the Packers had a 3-point fourth quarter lead, and I was getting or a 4-point fourth quarter lead, and I was getting 4.5 points in the bet. You can still tell I'm a little bitter about that outcome, but watching that game, betting against the 49ers, rooting against the 49ers, I can tell you that I was very impressed with the 49ers. I know their defense gave up more yards than usual. You can't sell short that Aaron Rodgers-led Packers offense, but how could you not have been blown away by Colin Kaepernick? Listen, I was one of these people. I've made the argument preseason. You might have heard it here on BETDAQ NFL. I've no doubt made it places. That I thought the 49ers were due for a slight step back this year just because expectations were so high and they did so well last year. Colin Kaepernick has only started a handful of games in his NFL career, losing Michael Crabtree, the only receiver he appeared to be comfortable with last year. I thought that NFL defenses would be able to take away Colin Kaepernick's rushing ability to a large extent this year by game planning for it, which the Green Bay Packers did last Sunday. However, I did not think Colin Kaepernick was going to be able to stand in the pocket and pick apart the defense the way he did the Packers secondary in that game. Over 400 passing yards, a career high. And so, even though I say it's tough for me to imagine San Francisco going up to Seattle and beating the Seahawks, given what we saw last December, boy, after what we saw out of the Niners last Sunday against Green Bay, awful tough to get bet against Colin Kaepernick 2 weeks in a row in my case. So, I don't know. I'm looking forward to watching that one. Not sure if I'm going to get involved yet. Another one that falls into that category, the Monday night game, Pittsburgh Steelers going on the road to play the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, Cincinnati, a 6.5-point favorite in this game. When I first saw that, that struck me as kind of low. Cincinnati, clearly a better team than Pittsburgh at this point. Pittsburgh laid the egg of the week in the NFL. I guess probably even a bigger egg than the Jacksonville Jaguars laid because the Jaguars were expected to be awful. Maybe not quite that awful, but they were expected to be awful. Pittsburgh was expected to be their usual self. Now, some people for a couple of years have talked about this team's decline, maybe age getting to them, but the general consensus was going into the season Pittsburgh would once again fight for a playoff spot, be right in the mix in the AFC North. However, after seeing them only put up 195 yards of total offense against a defense that gave up more points than any unit in the NFL last year, that being the Tennessee Titans, anybody that doesn't have serious doubts about this Pittsburgh Steelers team must be a fan. That's what I was trying to say. That's why I mixed both phrases. You must be wearing some serious black and gold glasses. There have to be serious concerns about the Steelers offense. I mean, where are the weapons? What's Ben Roethlisberger going to do? And I'm not even mentioning the injury to Marquise Pouncey last week, maybe the best center in the NFL. Roethlisberger, the Steelers have traditionally not had a good pass-protecting offensive line since Roethlisberger's been their quarterback. They now lose maybe the best center in the NFL. Roethlisberger's going to be running for his life. No longer has Mike Wallace, the deep threat. Heath Miller still injured, not back yet. So, I don't know how you can make an argument the Steelers are going to have any success against a Bengals defense that, heading into this season, I thought would be as good as any defense in the league. Not a great performance against Chicago in their Week 1 loss, but not a terrible performance either. Still have a lot of faith in this Cincinnati defense. I think Pittsburgh is going to have a whole lot of trouble moving the ball. There's two things that are holding me back here from fully jumping on Cincinnati and saying, yes, Cincinnati minus 6.5. The Pittsburgh defense. Pittsburgh finished first in the NFL in total defense last year for the second straight year, and you look at what they did against Tennessee. As I mentioned, Pittsburgh only gained 195 yards of total offense. Tennessee only had 220-something. They totally locked down that Titans offense, which was, of course, expected. And I expect them to do the same thing to the Andy Dalton-led Cincinnati Bengals offense. Don't forget, even though there's some pieces in that Cincinnati offense, they have one of the best wide receivers in all the league in A.J. Green, and a solid running back, Benjarvis Green-Ellis. A lot of people are excited about their rookies this year, Giovanni Bernard, Tyler Eifert. Jermaine Gresham, certainly a specimen at tight end, good pass catcher. So there's some pieces there of Cincinnati's offense, but they were below average last year, and they certainly didn't look explosive against the Chicago Bears in Week 1. Now, we think the Bears have a good defense. They had a good defense last year. I say we think because after Week 1, we don't really know anything. We're all guessing here based on what we've seen, but there should be questions and concerns about the Cincinnati offense. I don't know if it's Andy Dalton or if it's offensive coordinator Jay Gruden. To me, at this point, it's one or the other. And Dalton gets a lot of the blame, as quarterbacks frequently do, but I'm not sure Jay Gruden has done the best possible job of maximizing the talent on that roster over the last couple of years. Now, they'll have another chance this year. Cincinnati, the favorite in the AFC North. I have picked Cincinnati to win the AFC North. A lot of people are picking Cincinnati to possibly even win the AFC. To do so, they need to beat Pittsburgh at home on Monday night. This is the type of situation where, throughout their history, the Bengals have been thumped by the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers have owned, with the exception of a couple of years, a couple of glimmers in there, the Steelers have owned this rivalry. They have owned the division, and it's just given anybody who has watched the Steelers and the Bengals play year after year, taking the Bengals in this spot, in a primetime spot, laying 6.5 points, there's got to be a little doubt in there, right? But, maybe that's why it's such a good bet, because maybe that doubt is what's keeping this line at a very reasonable 6.5. As I said, when I first saw the number, I said, oh, that's Cincinnati. Cincinnati's going to cover that number because Pittsburgh is not going to be able to score. But the more I thought about it, I thought this is Cincinnati and this is Pittsburgh. We're still talking about the Steelers' defense here, okay? All those injuries, even though Larry Foote did get hurt last week, the Steelers' defense is just fine. As a matter of fact, they're probably still the best defense in the NFL. So it's going to be a great game. Looking forward to watching it. And one or two things are going to happen, I think. Either the Cincinnati Bengals are going to win the game comfortably, and that game in front of the football watching world, it's a primetime game, is going to be the symbolic torch being passed. Because Pittsburgh, no doubt, they are an aging team. Cincinnati is a young team. And if Cincinnati beats them handily here, as I said, on Monday Night Football, it might be a passing of the torch. It might be Cincinnati's division now. I expect them to win the North anyway. So I could see that happening. Or Pittsburgh might win the game outright. I know after they lost to the Tennessee Titans at home, a lot of people are thinking that's unlikely. Don't put it past Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if that happens, it would be almost just as notable, the opposite of the torch passing. It's nothing has been passed yet. You got to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you got to beat them the hard way. And we'll see if the Cincinnati Bengals are ready to do that. We'll see if they're ready for Pittsburgh's defense, the defensive physicality of Pittsburgh. See, I'm having trouble in 20 minutes into the video now. I'm having trouble getting all my words out right, but that's probably my signal to wrap it up, right? There's a few of my early thoughts on some of the Week 2 lines. Of course, we'll be previewing all of the games throughout the week here on BETDAQ NFL. We encourage you to come back and check them out. Follow us on Twitter at BETDAQ NFL. We'll follow you back, certainly. That is at BETDAQ NFL. If you'd like to email me, you can get at me anytime, john@betdaqnfl.com. That is JOHN@betdaqnfl.com. For BETDAQ NFL, I'm John Arnette.